Alright, hello doctors, welcome back to Pirates of Medicine. Today we are back with the physiology based series. The last video in this series, we're going to cover the leftover questions and end with this base. I hope you loved this series and this series was helpful in your crock preparation. Anyway, without any further ado, let's begin. So 116th question is that a man weighs 80 kg. After long physical activity, his circulating blood volume is reduced to 5.4 liters. Hematocrit makes up 50%. The whole blood protein is 80 gram per liter. These blood characteristics are determined first of all by. Now, if you look at the characteristics given, the indexes given, you will see that the blood volume is reduced. Obviously, they have given that. Hematocrit is normal. That whole blood protein level is almost normal. Now, the man was just doing physical activity and the blood volume decrease can be simply explained by loss of water by sweat, because the other characteristics have not changed and the water loss with sweat can lead to dehydration, which leads to decrease in circulating blood volume. Simple. So let's go to the next one. 117. A 16-year-old boy after an illness has diminished function of protein synthesis in the liver as a result of vitamin K deficiency. Now it will cause the disturbance of what? So if you remember from biochemistry, vitamin K is the only fat soluble vitamin that has a coenzymic function, which means that vitamin K acts as a coenzyme for carboxylation of glutamic acid present in the precursors of clotting factors. So glutamic acid, what happens that another glutamic acid carboxylation is occurred, which leads to two carboxylic acid functional group being attached to the precursor, and what happens is that this is the active form of these clotting factors, and with these clotting factors becoming active, they can bind to calcium ions and they can further go along with the process of coagulation cascade. So this is why vitamin K deficiency causes disturbance of blood coagulation. 118. In response to a change in body's vertical position from horizontal to vertical, system develops refractory pressure reaction. Which of the following is its compulsory component? Now, when your blood pressure changes, when you change your body's position, this type of change is called as this condition, excessive condition, is called as orthostatic hypotension. But first of all, the transition from supine, which means that you are laying down, to standing, it can cause a drop in the arterial blood pressure. When you stand from a laying down or supine position, the normal response in the heart is to maintain the blood pressure. Now this change in blood pressure, the drop in arterial blood pressure, it occurs due to gravity, because from a long time you are laying down and you are sleeping for the whole time, or even if you are laying down, then what happens is that your heart is resting, the arterial pressure is normal, and the body does not have to do anything else to work against gravity. But if you suddenly move from laying down to a standing position, there occurs a sudden drop in arterial pressure, because there is a certain movement between the time period in which the heart and the blood vessels, they have a pressure reflex for this change in the position of the body, so that the arterial pressure can become normal. So the normal response to this change in arterial pressure, the drop, is that the heart rate increases to maintain the blood pressure. But in some people who have disorder of the heart, the chronotropic disorders or incompetence of the heart rate will not increase upon standing, and this is called as orthostatic hypotension. Correct. So here the pressure reflex that is responsible for this is that after you change your body position, the drop in arterial pressure leads to a pressure reflex, which causes systemic constriction of the venous vessels. Venous vessels get constricted, the peripheral resistance increases, which causes a heart rate increase and a reflex arc. 119. Examination of a pregnant woman revealed twice as much concentration of fibrinogen in the blood plasma. What ESR can this woman have? Now, ESR in pregnancy is increased. We talked about this in anatomy as well. Pregnancy in ESR in pregnancy is increased. This occurs because of hemodilution and increase in plasma proteins content, especially fibrinogen and gamma globulins. So in pregnancy, these plasma proteins are increased. Now this leads to increase in ESR. What does ESR mean? It simply means that there is a decrease in settling down of RBCs when you take a blood sample in a test tube. You take a blood sample and you analyze it and you note down the time period in which the RBCs settle down, because RBCs have to settle down. That is their characteristic. The time they take to settle down, it is called as erythrocyte sedimentation rate. Now, if the ESR is increased, one of the causes that is related to background of pregnancy is increase in fibrinogen and increase in content of gamma globulins. So what will happen in pregnancy? ESR will be increased. Normally it should be around 10 to 15 or 8 to 13, but it is very high, 40 to 50. So this is why it is related to fibrinogen. Correct? 120. Introduction of a big dose of histamine to an experimental animal caused abrupt drop of arterial pressure as a result of what? So if you remember, histamine is a biogenic amine synthesized from histidine, and activated histamine has a certain effect on the body. Now what it does in the lungs, it causes bronchoconstriction seen in allergies and asthma. It most importantly for this question, it leads to dilation of blood vessels. And if you know anything about physiology, you should know the dilation of blood vessels leads to a decrease in blood pressure. Correct? So also it causes heartbeat increase in case of histamine being released in the heart. It causes increase in vessel permeability, which is seen in inflammation. For example, in bee stings, you can see development of inflammation because histamine is released. It activates blood clotting. It stimulates gastric acid secretion in the stomach because histamine receptors are present in the stomach. Swelling and inflammation, you already know. It also stimulates adrenaline release from the adrenal glands. So in the question, a patient was given histamine, which caused a drop of arterial blood pressure. This is due to dilation of the resistance vessels. So, systemic arterial pressure of an adult dropped from 120/70 to 90/50. That led to refractory vasoconstriction. The vasoconstriction will be maximal in the following organ. So, if you see that the blood pressure has decreased. Now, in reflex, because the body always wants to maintain homeostasis. So, in reflex, what it does, for example, you can see here the blood pressure is decreased. It leads to decreased baroreceptor activity. The baroreceptor, they detect the pressure in the blood vessels. So they see that the blood pressure is decreased, their activity decreases. This sends a signal to the cardiovascular center that the blood pressure is decreased, so there is a decrease impulses towards the cardiovascular center. Now this leads the cardiovascular center to ask the cortex or to tell the cortex that now we need to increase the sympathetic nervous system activity and we need to decrease parasympathetic nervous system activity, and then which ultimately leads to increase in cardiac output, vasoconstriction to ultimately increase blood pressure. Now vasoconstriction is the constriction of blood vessels which increases the blood pressure. And which organ will have maximum vasoconstriction? The organ which will have maximum blood supply. And the gut, the GIT, has the maximum blood supply because of its large surface area. So the maximal vasoconstriction occurs in the bowels or the gastrointestinal tract. I hope you understand this simply put baroreceptor reflex. So 122, vagus branches that innervate the heart are being stimulated during an experiment. This caused the reduction of heart rate due to the intensification of the following process. So if you remember, the cardiac innervation from the vagus nerve is by supplying parasympathetic fibers to the SA node and the AV node. Now the stimulation of vagus nerve leads to a decrease in heart rate. By what mechanism? It slows down the conduction impulse through the AV node. This AV node is present, and if you remember anything about the conducting system of the heart, the impulse action potential travels from the SA node to the AV node. In the AV node there is a certain AV delay, And AV delay helps in simultaneous contractions of the atrium and the ventricles. So when the vagus nerve it innervates the AV node, it further decelerates the conduction. How? It increases the potassium ion lead, which leads to hyperpolarization of the conducting cells present in the AV node. So it increases potassium ion yield. Simple. So 123, the rest potential of a cell equals minus 80 millivolt. At what stage of the action potential did the membrane potential equal plus 30 millivolt? Now, if you remember anything about the action potential, you will remember that when a stimulus comes, then there is opening of the slow sodium channels, and when the which leads to a change in potential from the negative to the positive side. And when the threshold is reached, it leads to opening of the fast depolarizing sodium channels. The gates open so much that there is a upward shoot of depolarization, and the membrane potential it becomes positive at a very high rate. So this is called as depolarization. And after a certain time, it even crosses the zero level, 0 millivolt, and it goes to the positive side completely. And this stage is called as reverse polarization, the stage in which the membrane potential reaches plus 30 millivolt, and then it falls down back when the sodium channels close and the potassium leaky channels open. So the potassium it goes out and the membrane potential becomes negative, and as it is going down, the potassium channels, if you remember, are lazy, and they keep on being open even if the potential reaches the resting potential, and they further remain open until the membrane potential reaches around minus 90, and then they close. And ultimately, with the action of sodium potassium pump, the level of the membrane potential comes again to the resting membrane potential, which is minus 70. So the stage at which action potential equals plus 30 millivolt is the stage of reverse polarization, in which the polarity is reversed. Basically, reverse polarization means the polarity has reversed. So before it was negative, now it is 40 or positive, plus 30. So this is reverse polarization. 124. A 35-year-old man got an injury that caused complete disruption of spinal cord at the level of first cervical segment. What respiration changes will be observed? Now, if you remember, we talked about this respiratory muscle supply in the question before, but there was a damage to the spinal cord at the level of thoracic vertebra. Now, in that question, we understood that we have the primary muscles of inspiration, the diaphragm and the scalene and the intercostals, external intercostals, not the scalene, the diaphragm and the external intercostals. They are innervated from the spinal segments, from the nerves arising from the spinal segments C1 to T3. Then we have the accessory muscles of inspiration and expiration, like sternocleidomastoid, internal costals, internal intercostals. Now, sternocleidomastoid also gets its nerve supply from the cervical vertebra or the cervical part of the spinal cord, and the intercostals receive from the thorax. Now, if you understand yourself, if the injury is at the first cervical vertebra, then all of these muscles will not get nerve supply, even the primary muscles, which primary muscles are responsible for normal breathing, yes, without force. So in case of damage to the C1 vertebra, all of these muscles innervation will be impaired, and because this will be happening, it will lead to respiration coming to a standstill. So remember, if the injury is above C2, it causes respiratory standstill. If there is an injury below C7, then the primary muscles of expiration occurs passively, normal expiration. And normal inspiration muscles are primary muscles, diaphragm and external intercostals. And even if the injury is at the level of first thoracic vertebra or second thoracic vertebra, respiration is still normal. But if injury is at the C1, respiration comes to a standstill. 125. A doctor asked the patient to breathe out fully after taking a normal breath. What muscles contract during such exhalation? We just talked about this. Normally, the expiration is passive. When you exhale because of the elastic recoil of the lung. There is no muscle taking part in exhalation. Although inspiration, we have the diaphragm and the external intercostals taking like part, but in expiration it is passive. But forceful expiration has like certain muscles, they take part in the forceful exhalation. What muscles? Okay, so let's talk about the muscles of expiration. In expiration, quiet expiration, I told you, it occurs because of passive recoil of the lungs. But active breathing, active respiration, forceful expiration, it occurs with the help of abdominal muscles like the rectus abdominis, external oblique, internal oblique, and transverse abdominis, and also some of the internal intracostals. So this is why the abdominal muscles will be injured. Pretty simple. Or not injured, they will contract during a forceful exhalation. So let's go to the next one. So coming to 126 question. A man was intoxicated with mushrooms. They contain muscarine, which stimulates muscarinic cholinereceptors. What symptoms signalize intoxication with the inedible mushrooms? So there is a mushroom poisoning and the mushroom contain muscarine, which stimulates the muscarinic cholinereceptors. If you know, muscarinic cholinereceptors are a part of the parasympathetic nervous system. So if the muscarinic or the parasympathetic nervous system is stimulated, but the effect on the pupils is constrictions of the pupil. So this is why this constriction of the pupil is called as miosis. So this is constriction of pupil via the effect of parasympathetic nerves with the stimulation of muscarinic cholinereceptors. Simple. So this is miosis. Constriction is called as miosis and dilation is called as mydriasis. 127 is the man presents with increased heart rate, mydriatric pupils, dry mouth. The condition results from the activation of the following system of function regulation. So you can see there is increased heart rate, mydriatric pupils, dry mouth, and we just studied that mydriasis or the dilation of pupil occurs in the opposite of parasympathetic system, which is the sympathetic nervous system. Also, heart rate is increased in sympathetic nervous system, and also salivary glands are inhibited and there occurs inhibition of salivation and dry mouth in sympathetic nervous system activation. So this is why sympathetic innervation regulation is activated. Correct? It leads to these symptoms. 128. In course of an experiment, peripheral section of the vagus of an experimental animal is being stimulated. What changes will be observed? Quick revision. Vagus nerve supplies parasympathetic fibers to the SA node and AV node, by which parasympathetic nervous system we just studied, it decreases and slows down the heart rate. That is why the answer is heart rate fall. 129. Voluntary breath holding caused the increase of reception depth and frequency. The main factor stimulating these changes of external respiration is, so pretty simple and logical question. If you voluntarily hold your breath and you don't let the breathing continue on its own, what would happen? The amount of carbon dioxide in your blood will increase, the amount of oxygen in your blood will decrease. So the main factor that influences the respiration depth and frequency, it is actually due to stimulation of these chemoreceptors present in our body, which check the tension, the increased partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood, and which stimulate the respiratory center, so that respiration depth and frequency is increased in response. So increased tension of carbon dioxide is responsible for these changes. 130. A patient has delayed conduction of the excitement through the AV node. What changes in the ECG will be observed? So if you remember the ECG, then the PR or the PQ interval represents the delay of the AV node to allow filling of the ventricles. So if there is an increase in AV conduction, increase in time of AV conduction, This leads to prolongation of the PQ or PR interval. Okay, that is why the answer is A. 131. Surface with an intact toad on it was inclined to the right. The tone of extensor muscles became refractory high due to the activation of the following receptors. So, this toad or the experimental animal was inclined to the right. So, we have these vestibular receptors present in our ear. Two types of vestibular receptors. The one present in the semicircular canal, which is called as crista ampullaris, in ampullae of the semicircular canal, which detect angular movement. For example, the movement when you go a merry-go-round or you are doing burnouts. Also, we have the otolith organs present in the maculae of saccule and utricle, which detect gravitation and linear movement. And ultimately, when these receptors are stimulated, the vestibulospinal tract, it increases the amount of signals that go to the extensor muscles, which are the body posture regulating muscles. So vestibular receptors, which should be stimulated when the toad was inclined to the right, which means there was increase in linear acceleration. So linear acceleration depends on activation of vestibular receptors of utricle and saccule. Angular acceleration receptors are vestibular receptors of semicircular canals. So that is why the answer is vestibular receptors of saccule and utricle. Simple. 132. In course of an experiment, a toad's labyrinth was destroyed. It will cause a myotonia of the following muscles. Just now we heard vestibular receptors. They correspond and they communicate with the extensor muscles, because if they find any change in the body's position with respect to linear or angular momentum, then they stimulate the vestibulospinal tract, and the fibers from these tract they carry the muscles, they carry the information to the anti-gravity muscles. They stimulate the extensors and inhibit the flexors. So you can see here from the semicircular canal and vestibular nuclei, the information goes to the neurons, the abducens neuron and the vestibular neurons first of all, and then various compensatory movements occur, but via the vestibulospinal tract they stimulate the extensors and inhibit the flexors. So that is why the answer here is right extensors, because the right labyrinth was destroyed. Correct? Same side. 133. An animal has increased tonus of extensor muscles. This the result of intensified information transmission to the motor neurons of the spinal cord through the following descending pathway. Again, repeated question. Vestibulospinal tract, increased tone of extensor muscle through the vestibulospinal tract. Even you can remember in anatomy we did this, that vestibulospinal tract innervate the anti-gravity muscles, they stimulate the extensors, inhibit the flexors, while on its counterpart, the rubrospinal tract, it stimulates the flexor muscles and inhibit the extensors. So they both work antagonistically. 134. Workers of a hothouse farm work under the conditions of unfavorable microclimate. The air temperature is very high, plus 37 degrees Celsius. Humidity is 90%. Air speed is 0.2 meter per second. So in this case, heat emission, if you remember, will be via evaporation. Evaporation occurs when the outer environmental temperature is higher than the skin, but limited when the humidity is around 100%. Here, the humidity is 90% and the air temperature is very high, so the heat loss will occur with the help of evaporation. Simple. Remember the mechanisms of heat loss. Then 135. Lung of a preterm infant have areas of atelectasis, pulmonary collapse. The main causes. So atelectasis is collapse of the lungs, and this occurs in newborn preterm babies because they have deficiency of surfactant. Premature babies, they cannot synthesize surfactant, which is responsible for decreasing the alveolar tension. So in this case, their lungs collapse, which is called as atelectasis. It is the complete or partial collapse of the lungs. It is seen in premature babies because they don't have enough amount of surfactant. This is the cause of airway collapse and respiratory distress syndrome in this preterm infants. the treatment is surfactant introduction. We introduce surfactant into the lungs of the baby via medical method. Okay, do you understand? Let's go to the next one. Okay, so 136 question is that the vagi or the vagus nerve of an experimental animal were cut on the both sides. What respiration changes will be observed? So the vagus nerve innervates the lungs and gives the parasympathetic nervous supply to the lungs. And if we cut the vagus nerve bilaterally, then after experiments it was observed that bilateral vagotomy leads to depression of the respiratory frequency with the prolongation of the expiratory period and with enhanced inspiratory amplitude. The Hering-Breuer inflation reflex and the thermal painting were abolished. So basically what it means is that after vagi of an experimental animal, if they are cut on the both sides, which is called as bilateral vagotomy, the respiration becomes deep and irregular or infrequent. 137 is that a cardiac electric stimulator was implanted to, which is a pacemaker, was implanted to a 75-year-old man with the heart rate of 40. After this, the heart rate rose up to 70. The electrical stimulator has taken the function of the falling heart part. So before it was 40, if you remember, 40 BPM action potential are generated with the AV node. And now after the introduction of this electrical stimulator or pacemaker, the heart rate increased to 70, which corresponds to the heart rate due to SA node. So this electrical stimulator has taken the part of the SA node, because now the heart rate corresponds to 70 BPM, which is normal for SA node. Correct? So this is 137. Now 138. A patient came to the hospital complaining about quick fatigability and apparent muscle weakness. Examination revealed autoimmune disease that causes disorder of functional receptor condition in neuromuscular synapses. What transmitter will be blocked? So this is myasthenia gravis. Myasthenia gravis is an autoimmune disease which is characterized by weakness and fatigability of skeletal muscles. Now this is caused by the decrease in the number of postsynaptic acetylcholine receptors at the neuromuscular synapse junction, which causes a decrease in the capacity of the neuromuscular end plate to transmit the nerve signal. Think of it this way, that in the presynaptic junction, presynaptic part of the synapse, acetylcholine is released, which travels to the next postsynaptic membrane of the next neuron and gets on the receptors. This leads to transmission of the impulse. This is seen in normal synapse. But in myasthenia gravis, the receptors are blocked by the antibodies, which leads to decrease in impulse transmission because receptors are not available for transmission. So autoimmune disorder in which autoantibodies develop against these receptors, acetylcholine receptors or nicotinic postsynaptic receptors. So this leads to blockage of the nerve impulse or impairment of the nerve impulse. This is called as myasthenia gravis. So the transmitter that will be blocked is the acetylcholine receptor. 139. In which muscle contraction will be observed in the upper extremity during holding and not moving a load in the certain position? So remember, we have three types of contractions. We have the isometric, we have the isotonic, we have the isotonic concentric, we have the isotonic eccentric. In isometric, simply think of it this way. In both three cases, like this lady over here, you are trying to pick up a box. Now when you are giving off certain force to try to pick up this box, but the box is not moving and your muscle is not contracting or shortening, this is called as isometric, because your muscle length is same. It does not change. It does not shorten. So this occurs every time when you start to pick up something, or if you start a muscle contraction. But if there is something that you are trying to pick up that is beyond your strength, then isometric contraction occurs for a long time. Then we have the isotonic concentric, in which the muscle shortens. So when you pick up the object and move it towards yourself, this is called as isotonic concentric because the muscle is shortening. Then we have the isotonic eccentric. In the muscle tension remains while the muscle lengthens. So muscle is lengthening. So you're moving the object back to the initial position or any other position. So when your muscles length increases with your muscle tension remaining the same, it is called as isotonic eccentric. When your muscle length shortens with the constant degree of tension while picking up object or a weight, it is called as isotonic concentric. When your muscle does not change, the length does not change, but the tension is there, this is called as isometric. So in this question, we had muscle contraction will be observed in the upper extremity during holding and not moving alone. So I think you now understand this is isometric type of contraction. Simple? Okay. 140. Examination of a 35-year-old patient revealed high acidity of gastric juice. What receptor should be blocked in order to reduce it? If you remember, histamine receptors are present which detect histamine is released first of all from the enterochromaffin-like cells present in the stomach. This histamine, it stimulates the parietal cells which have these histamine receptors, and it stimulates the parietal cells to increase synthesis of acid, because parietal cells are responsible for gastric acid secretion, and these parietal cells have these histamine receptors. When histamine comes into the contact of these receptors, it leads to starting of gastric acid secretion, stimulation of gastric acid secretion. So this is why histamine receptors need to be blocked to decrease acidity of a patient, and we give histamine blockers. Do you know any histamine blockers? We have ranitidine, correct? So let's go to the next one. 141. A young woman who entered a production department where it strongly smelt of paint when varnishes had a bronchospasm. The reflex was caused by the irritation of the following receptors. So if you know, we have these irritant receptors. From the name you can understand the irritant receptors present in the lungs. These are the nerve endings or receptors that are situated between the epithelial lining the respiratory tract. They respond to irritant materials like cigarette smoke, paint, anything that irritates the lung mucosa and cause reflex, cough or bronchospasm via the vagus nerve. So these are the irritant receptors. I hope you understand. Let's go to the next one. So 142 is rather simple. A 60-year-old patient presents with weakened peristaltic activity of the bowels. Which of the following foodstuffs would stimulate the peristalsis most of all? So brown bread is a high fiber containing diet. So if you have a lot of brown bread, it will lead to peristaltic activity of the bowels increasing, and it will stimulate peristalsis. So brown bread is one of the most peristaltic activity stimulating diet because it has high content of fiber. 143. An isolated muscle fiber is under examination. It was established that the threshold of stimulation force became lower. What is the cause of this phenomena? So if you remember, action potential occurs when the stimulus comes and the sodium receptors, they open. Slowly and slowly sodium comes in, which leads to slight increase in the membrane potential towards the positive side. And when the stimulus reaches the threshold, it causes rapid opening of sodium channels, and rapid depolarization takes place. The membrane potential becomes positive very quickly. So for this threshold of stimulation force becoming lower, this is due to the activation of sodium channels of the membrane. Pretty simple. 144. It was established that the agglutination of the recipients had been caused by the standard sera of the first and second. Serum of the third group didn't cause, and RH serum didn't cause any agglutination. So I told you a short trick. If the agglutination does not occur at all, and if the agglutination does occur in all the serum, and if the agglutination occurs only with 2 of the 3 serums, first, second and third, only 2 of the first, second and third, then I told you the tricks. If you remember those tricks from the previous video, you should know that in the question they mentioned that the agglutination occurred in the first and the second group. So agglutination occurred over here. So what is common in this? Common is the antibody B, and it didn't occur in the third one. Does third has antibody B? No, it doesn't. So it means that agglutination occurred in the cases when anti-B antibody was present, which agglutinates B antigen. So in third case, there was no B antibody B. So the blood group must be third blood group. The patient's blood group is B, which agglutinated in the first and second sera because antibody B were present. Correct? Watch our previous videos so that you remember. And also, anti-RH serum didn't provoke, so which means that the blood group is Rh negative. If it did provoke, then the blood group was supposed to be Rh positive. Okay, 145. A patient consumed a lot of food rich in proteins and caused the increase of rate of proteolytic enzymes of pancreatic juice. It is also accompanied by the increase in rate of the following enzyme. So protein-rich food, we need to synthesize enzymes which digest protein. So we have these pancreatic enzymes for protein digestion: chymotrypsin, trypsin, and carboxypeptidase. And out of all the options, trypsin is the only one present, and that is why answer is trypsin. 146. In course of an experiment, thalamocortical tracts of an animal were cut. What type of sensory perception remained intact? So you need to remember that out of all the nerves and all the spinal nerves or anything, all the nerves pass through the thalamocortical junction except the olfactory nerves. Olfactory nerves directly go to the middle cranial fossa via the cribriform plate. And what happens, you can see these are the olfactory receptors present in the superior nasal concha. They take the signal, the smell signal, the olfactory signals, and via the olfactory nerve, it directly goes into the middle cranial fossa. It does not have to go through the thalamocortical junction, through the thalamus. So this is why the answer is olfactory, because even if the thalamocortical tracts were cut, olfactory perceptions, it remained intact. So that is all for today. We covered the physiology base in this series. With this video, everything is over. So I hope you loved this video. I hope you loved this series, and hope the series was helpful in your crock preparation. With less than a few days left for your crock, I hope you are doing well. Please prepare well. Please do the previous years again and again, the bases again and again, so at least you have a gist of and the questions being etched into your mind so that you can answer them when they appear in front of you in the crock exam. So that is all for today, and this has been good. See you in the next one.